We are live.
Okay. I would like to welcome everybody to the Township of Georgian Bay Council meeting for Monday and Tuesday, March 8th and 9th, 2021. We have a number of delegations and presentations scheduled for tomorrow. So obviously with that part of our agenda, we will address tomorrow morning. But in the meantime, we'll see what we can get done in regard to the items on our agenda that do not have external input, if I can put it that way. So I'd like to call this meeting to order at 11:08 a.m. And I typically start with the land acknowledgement. Obviously, I've given one earlier today for the Planning Council, but again, I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge that we're on the lands that are traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. They continue to care for this land. They continue to shape the Township of Georgian Bay as we know it today, and we want to show our respect. They've been here a lot longer than any of us or our ancestors have been here, and I think it's very important that we understand that. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today in guiding our decisions and our actions. Miigwech. Does anybody have any pecuniary interest on our upcoming agenda that they believe they should be declaring? Or any other conflicts against our codes of conduct or anything like that? I'm not seeing any. So we're going to go over items 4 and 5 presentation delegations, and we are going to go straight to the consent agenda. And I have moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved, the council adopts the consent agenda of March 8th, 2021 as circulated, and the council hereby ratifies the Committee of the Whole resolutions of February 9th, 2021. Councillor Hazelton.
Can we pull item F and discuss that a little bit, please?
That is within your ability to request, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, be it resolved, the council adopts the consent agenda of March 8th, 2021 as amended, and that the council hereby ratifies the Committee of the Whole resolutions of February 9th, 2021. All those in favor? All right, and that is carried with, and that's all fine until we get to item F, which is the CEO report, General Planning Services, RFP results. Ms. Gunby, Mr. Councillor Hazelton would like to hear from you on this one.
Okay, I wasn't going to speak to a consent matter, but I would prefer if Councillor Hazelton just asked his question, I could answer that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So less questions on the report and more of this will be a new planning firm coming to represent us. And before they go diving into all kinds of matters, I think it would be helpful for us to have a virtual meet and greet and just have an opportunity to dialogue with them before we start asking them tough questions that typically take place when planning matters come forward. So I'm just wondering, as I say, my ask for this being pulled is less about the report. First of all, thank you for following through and coming to a selection. It sounds like it's a good one, but I do think that it's always better if you know who's on your team, and I think that an opportunity to engage in a session like that would be very helpful.
Okay, we can organize something like that.
Councillor Wienko.
Yeah, I was just curious about this company. The report was kind of short on more about the company. Where is RL Richardson, where are they located and what's their experience in Muskoka and specifically Georgian Bay?
They are located in Sudbury, and they have more experience than the other ones in northern communities. They do not have any experience in Georgian Bay, but they do have a little bit north of us. They have like they worked at town of Espanola. They did things there and in the surrounding areas. So they do have experience closer to this area than the other ones.
And what type of how many employees do they have, or how many are we going to be using? Are you using one individual, several individuals? How big are they?
We're going to be using 4 individuals.
They're a multi-branch organization, I think headquartered in Ottawa, if memory.
I think there's 5 or 6 offices, but we'd be using the one in Sudbury. 3 of the people we'd be using are out of the Sudbury office, and one of them is in a different office. But if we needed to chat with him, it would be via Zoom or anything, so they wouldn't have to charge us any mileage.
Okay, so maybe worthwhile taking a little boat trip of Georgian Bay sometime and maybe a few of the inland lakes.
I'm sure we could arrange that with them.
Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. And just following up on that, yeah, I checked them out on their website, so I could see that they had several offices and seemed to have some very good experience and good references. So that's helpful. And I like the suggestion of getting them out into the area to see what we're up against. But if they're from Sudbury, I'm really surprised they wouldn't have had any exposure to, maybe not Georgian Bay per se, but perhaps the Great Lakes. Do we know if they've had any work on any of the communities that go around the Great Lakes per se?
I can't remember every single word from their 87-page submission. I'm sure they do have some.
So that could be part of our, just to follow up, be part of our sort of orientation. We can have some questions and suggestions, and part of the orientation could be what we should have on almost every case. Anybody new to the organization should have a chance to learn about what they're looking after. So thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I have in front of me a motion moved by Councilor Jarvis, seconded by Councilor Wienko. Be it resolved that Council receive the report of the successful general planning services contract being awarded to J.L. Richards as information only. All those in favor? And that is carried. And the consent agenda is now behind us. So, moving along. Moved by Councilor Wienko, seconded by Councilor Bocheck. Be it resolved that Council adopts the regular agenda of March 8th, 9th, 2021 as circulated. Any comments or additions? All those in favor? And that agenda is now live. And which means we got to start with telling everybody what we have or have not done in the past few weeks. Last month, I went in alphabetical order. So this month, it seems only fair, I go in reverse alphabetical order. So starting with Councilor Wienko.
I had planned on that.
Wise man.
It was pretty quiet in the last month or so. I zoomed in on 2 of the modernization committee meetings up at the district. I guess hopefully the mayor will talk about the resolutions that have come out with that. And I guess there's another meeting next Monday on that. So there seemed to be a split right now on the resolutions that have come out from that group, but I'll let the mayor talk about that. On the 22nd of February, I co-chaired a meeting, fireside chat with all the mayors from the various Severn Sound area, and just to bring them more or less up to date what the SSEA does and allow them to ask any questions and so on. And I guess the biggest issue that came out of that is all the mayors are quite concerned about the year-over-year increase in costs with the SSCA, and that is something we'll have to address for next year. And I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. Since last council, we've had lots going on with regards to the library. We're seeking out a new CEO, and with any luck, things will look good for a presentation tomorrow for you, a deputation from our chair. I'm looking forward to that. Committee of Adjustment, we've had a meeting back on the 12th. I find, and I think the mayor will agree, the Committee of Adjustment seems to be going very, very smoothly. Of course, now that there's only one of us on that committee. A few GBLT landmark speaker series events. I think there's one on snakes, which was interesting, that went on. And then I had the opportunity to go out and visit a site for Committee of Adjustment this past Friday with another member of the committee, David Matthews. It was an interesting visit. We were out at Miners Bay, 6 Mile Lake, for an application off Lagoon Road. And I think a number of things came up that we talked to Brad in planning about. And one was access. Two was trying to find the place. We had an application nailed to a tree on Lagoon Road, which was not the address that we were going to. It was the right application, but not in a place that was indicative of where we needed to be. It was very interesting trying to find the place, and then it was rather treacherous getting onto the property, even though we've been told that it was had been made accessible. I think we need to carry some sort of new insurance with us when we go to the sites like this at this time of the year. Anyway, food for thought in the future. And then I think I've got it. Seg Bay, definitely Seg Bay is ongoing. They're having their own issues with regards to the COVID situation and business, but they are carrying on, and I quite enjoy those meetings. That being said, most everybody who's a member of that board attends. There are some conspicuous absences on a regular basis, which I find interesting, but the group seems to get along really well. And the one neat observation from all of them were those that were in the real estate business, either brokerage or selling real estate, stating that they're happy they didn't go south for the winter because they've been very, very busy this winter, which is obviously indicative of what's going on with housing, generally speaking. That's it.
All right, thank you. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzir. So I'll just kind of ditto what Councillor Jarvis said. Not only did I attend the library board, but I have been involved in some discussions on the need for a new CEO. And I guess in hindsight, we've probably made a mistake in the past where we had a CEO of the library who seemed to be happy at the income structure that she had. Now that she has been coaxed away from the library to go to another place, we find ourselves in a massive void, so to speak, on income for a CEO of a library that we kind of knew in the past, but we kind of accepted that because our current CEO wasn't terribly unhappy that we would kind of maintain status quo. And I guess we need to learn from those kinds of mistakes going forward, because now we are going to have a big chunk to pay attention to. We did have a special council meeting on March 2nd. In preparation for that, I spent pretty much an entire day doing all kinds of research so I could be properly informed. I think that the more we get into matters of the township, the more we all need to kind of self-research, self-inform. The current influx of LPAT hearings, certainly out in the Bay anyways, has caused a huge flurry of communication taking place out there. And so much of the past month has been involved in daily or multiple calls a day with constituents on all of these kinds of matters. So we may not be able to meet with everybody, but that certainly doesn't mean there isn't an enormous amount of activity pretty much on a daily basis. But there you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Coetzee. I'll try and keep this brief. So most of my communication this month has been with constituents in regards to gun laws. That's a delegation coming up tomorrow. Also where we're at with the garbage bins. I mean, people are starting to think about that a little bit more as the spring rolls around. I'm also at the moment just in the process of organizing a pre-freshet webinar with OPG, MNRF, and Swift River. I will try and announce that once I get that sorted out. Also the parking lot issues at Go Home Lake, internet service for MacTier, which is I know there's a delegation coming up tomorrow, but there is another company that would like to get in for a delegation. Apparently hasn't been able to get a hold of our clerk yet, but hoping for April. And that also is something that we would like to look at for Go Home Lake, because most people are still not getting service even with the new tower. And that's just about it for me. It's just been a lot of communication with constituents.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Coetzee. Yeah, a busy month. Typical district meetings that occurred on the 15th, Council, the 18th, 2 committee meetings, and then also attending a budget meeting for the district on the 26th. And all through that period as well, there have been a couple of council composition, modernization meetings. And it looks like we have another one coming up in terms of hearing about what the next suggestions are, although we've seen 2 recommendations, and I'll let the mayor talk about that when he chooses, but we've seen 2 recommendations that essentially one way or another point to weighted voting. So one way or another, if we accept either of these, or frankly stay where we are, which is weighted in effect, our councillors are less than everybody else, so other than Lake of Bays. So that's concerning to me, given the fact that our township is very large and a challenge to manage. And I've shared my thoughts with some of you. So those are my comments about how my month went, including along with what Councillor Hazelton said, which is tons and tons of communication with our community about a variety of matters, particularly as it pertains to planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wojcik, you started last time, you're pulling up the rear this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll continue on the same vein that Councillor Cooper left off on. I had some time to review as much of the information on the council composition and modernization at the district, and I echo Councillor Cooper's comments in his last email that we really need to pull together as a council and support what he had written, as far as I'm concerned, because it's very unfair at the district level that we're being treated like we're being treated. So hats off to the folks that have steered this and tried to work on behalf of our township to get equal representation by population. Back to my month, I had an impromptu meeting with Parks Canada. I actually sought out the meeting because of the major thoroughfare through Port Severn has been closed for years now, and that's being the Lock 45 Dam and Bridge, causing extensive problems. We seen on the weekend where there was an accident on the 400. Of course, you can't go through Port Severn. It's a 70-mile detour to get around that. Just absolutely insane. So it was scheduled to be open this year. I went and I spoke to a foreman at the site, and he said, well, hold on. we found a big crack in the wall of the locks, and we are not going to be opening this year. There's extensive work that still needs to be done. So I'm going to ask that we have a delegation by Parks Canada come into our council in a Zoom meeting and be fully accountable and full transparency on where we are, what we're doing, when we're supposed to be done with this, because our local businesses have suffered for 3+ years. We need to act on this as a township. We had a I don't know what you want to call it. It wasn't a meeting. It was a phone call, a video phone call between the mayor, our CAO, myself, and a concerned business person in the township of Georgian Bay, and we discussed many issues, focusing on the levels of service that businesses in the township of Georgian Bay receive for the tax dollars that they spend. And it was a very good and informative conversation. That was one of the topics. The other topic was the process in which we work through our planning department and our building department, and sometimes the delays that are experienced, and how we can maybe look at ways that, some building permits don't get extended to the point where it's almost a year. We need to find a better method. And I agree. Fielding a lot of phone calls from the Severn River about a topic that will be on today's agenda, people wanting a public launch ramp up there on the Severn River. There isn't one. I don't believe there's any ability to have one. There is privately owned businesses that have launch ramps up there. I've entered into conversations with all those marinas on the Severn River, right from the far side of Severn Township, right up to the big chute. So that was part of my month, gaining information on that. And lastly, well, actually, two things to do with my area. Oak Bay, we're going to be talking about this again shortly, about the multi-use path from the community center, the Baxter Ward Community Center, all the way over to the Port Severn Park, and the reasons why that is a necessity. We've been talking about this for 7 years. They want some action. They have great reasons for it, so that'll be presented later. Also, talk about the dog park. We had a dog park slated for the Baxter Ward Community Center for the residents of Port Severn and the residents of Oak Bay. The location was determined, the fencing design somewhat, but no action. So they were commenting, or they were asking me, when are we going to get the dog part? And I will take that up with our operations director and just see how the progress on that part is going. That's basically it for my month.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I had more than a few things going on, including regular, like on February 10th, with regards to the land trust, and then a meeting with the township mayors. On the 11th, it was the biosphere, and then one of the MMCs, or the Municipal Modernization Committee meetings. On the 12th was the Committee of Adjustment, and then had meetings with both Ms. Gunby and Ms. Lemieux. 16th, I had a very enjoyable discussion with our new board chair for the library about the various options, and I'm looking forward to that conversation later in our meeting. I had an unusually long district council meeting that day as well, which led me to missing other meetings, what frankly I'd rather have gone to. It's amazing how much time district council can take meeting after meeting after meeting talking about the airport. Just blows me away, especially because it's so repetitive and slow. But that's my little editorial. On the 17th, the Board of Health, and of course the board, my sitting on the Board of Health has been far more interesting in the last year than I would ever have expected, and very interesting. And just for anybody who wants to know, it was not the board itself who wanted to go back into gray. And then district finance meeting. On the 18th, I had the pleasure of meeting the new finance commissioner that's now, I think, announced as of a couple of days ago for the district of Muskoka, because she obviously has to replace Julie, who has moved up to the CAO position. And I can tell you my first impressions anyway were very positive with the new finance commissioner. On the 22nd, as Councillor Wanko already mentioned, the Severn Sound Mayor's Fireside Chat. I found that very interesting. One part that I found also quite interesting with that is a couple of the mayors have dealings with a conservation authority as well as with Severn Sound. And there was zero doubt in their mind that they much rather deal with an organization like Severn Sound than they do with conservation authorities with all that goes around them and the various challenges. The 26th District Committee of the Whole for Budgets, March 2nd, the council closed meeting, as you know, and then met with the local share group with regards to the Muskoka Algonquin Health Committee, and the fact that they want a whole ton of money from the municipality for the new hospitals in Bracebridge and Huntsville, because the province has made it very clear that the property tax, the property owners have to pay a far more significant portion of hospital costs than they ever have in the past. But at least they readily acknowledge, without me even mentioning it first, is that they don't serve the township of Georgian Bay. And so they weren't expecting anything from the township. However, we must remember that any money that the district decides to contribute, 10% of that comes from our township. But at least I will tell you, during the budget discussions, they recognized that they have paid almost nothing. I think $15,000 that anybody can come up with over the history to the hospital in Midland, the Georgian Bay General, and therefore I think we got them that they're open for applications to get some funding going in that direction. So we're definitely going to follow up on that. Also attended following that, the Seg Bay swearing in. For some reason, every year they want the mayor to swear in their members. So I did that, and then they readily booted me out of the meeting. So you'd have to rely on Councillor Jarvis to find out whatever they discussed after that. On the 3rd, another district Municipal Modernization Committee. And before I want to make some conversation about that, but before I do that, I'll just mention I also, like the rest of you, have heard a lot from various constituents, various residents over the last month, like prior months. But one comment that a number of them have made, which and you can decide whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but how many of them are saying they're attending, if you will, or watching our council meetings more than they ever have before in their life because they have the opportunity to do so. I don't know how much they're doing it for entertainment or what, but there's a lot more people paying a little more attention to what we're doing than before because they have that opportunity. And so to all of you watching, welcome. And municipal modernization, we have a dilemma, quite frankly. As those who have been watching know, it's unfortunately become a towns versus township situation. When back in November, December, I was a little more optimistic simply because there seemed to be agreement around the table that the towns and the townships should have an equal number of councillors. And it was initially proposed 2, and then we went to 3 per municipality. And there seemed to be general agreement with that. And however, the towns insisted on some form of weighted voting, and we tried to come up with 1 or 2 alternatives. And we had not landed on something that everybody was satisfied with. And then the towns surprised us a couple of meetings ago with this resolution, sort of out of the blue. All of a sudden, nope, they want to keep it with the towns having more councillors than the townships. And they put that forward. Obviously, it only got support of 3 mayors, and the other 3 mayors did not support it. And here's how I summarize the situation we face right now. If we can't come to an agreement, and by the way, an agreement with the so-called triple majority, the agreement means not only does it have to pass district council of the current 22 member district council, it also have to pass approval in at least 4 of the municipalities. And if that doesn't happen, then by default, nothing changes. We're exactly where we are now. There's no change whatsoever. And where we are now is that the towns have 12 seats and the townships have 10 seats. That does not matter 95% of the time. However, on a few key votes, it very much does matter. The most recent one that I can recall is on development charges. We've also had it in the past on OPP charges and how they're allocated between municipalities. The towns are very concerned that it may come up when we try to decide how much the taxpayer should be paying for the hospitals. And the towns are scared, quite frankly, that the townships, which are majority seasonal residents, will stop funding the towns to the extent they have in the past. It comes down to money. It really comes down to that simple. And so that's what we're faced with. So what we've been trying to do, we being the 3 township mayors and those of us who are wanting to see some change, is coming up with some, I'll call it compromise, where we are equal around the table, but under certain conditions, we would have a form of weighted voting. Absolutely not my preference. However, if we don't give something, then nothing will change. And that's not my preference either. And so part of me says, well, let's give it one more kick at making a concession, but at the same time getting some change, which I think would be a step in the right direction. But I'm quite nervous that what will happen is it'll end up, whatever we come up with, if we come up with something, it'll go in front of district council, and district council will either be stalemated, or in all likelihood, the towns will win. And if they win and propose some sort of change, it's going to fail because I believe none of the townships, local municipal councils will approve it, and therefore it's for naught. That's my fear. I'm very disappointed in the town mayors, not only that they are doing their darn, I mean, quite frankly, the proposal they have in front of them says that we will be reduced from 3 to 2 councillors, and that Lake and Bay is the same thing. How they think that our 2 municipalities, A, would ever approve that, I don't know. And B, I strongly believe that the Muskoka Lakes won't approve it either, because they're still going to be in a situation where they don't feel it's been a fair result. So I don't know where it will all end up. I'd say I'm frustrated. I don't, my opinion is I didn't get elected to maintain status quo. I got elected to try to make things a little better in many fronts, including our relationship with district. And I think there's so many other things that are more important than we need to talk about. But it's been a real distraction the last few months. And I don't mind it. I do mind, actually. I don't want to admit, but I'm fearing that it may be for naught. But that's where that is right now. We meet Monday morning, Monday afternoon, this coming week, the district council meets, and it'll certainly be a topic that might take a significant amount of time because probably almost every councillor will want to speak to it, probably twice. So we'll see where it ends up. But that's my update on that. Okay. Now we have done that. Ms. Gunby, you got to set us all straight before we go into staff reports.
It's like you read my mind. I have a couple points of clarification to make. There is not a 70-mile detour based on the lock being closed. It's maybe more like 7 kilometers. You just have to go to the next ramp. But it was a 70-kilometer detour when Whites Falls Road was closed. So that might be what you're referring to, Councillor Bocek. And also as far as I'm aware, we never approved a dog park. So there never was one guaranteed. We've talked about it a few times, but it was never approved in budget, but I can follow up with staff on that and take that off your plate. Something else to update on is that, as you're aware, we're all in red right now after a week of gray. And I still have my weekly phone calls with the health unit and 2 a week with the Minister of Health regarding the COVID updates. As of March 4th, there have been 13 vaccination centers open throughout the region. What else? Oh, the fire chief wants me to point out a couple things that as much as we would like to increase the parking fees on district roads, the district is not going to be working on that project until the end of this year. And that we are starting up voyant alerting. And for now, will be for emergency group purposes, but it's a system that if you sign up for it, sends alerts to your phones, and we can sort of customize it. We can send alerts regarding weather, or maybe a council update, or things like that. There's many, many things we can use this for. So that will be launching on the next couple of weeks. And I think that's all I had in my notes.
All right, thank you very much. So the first item that we have under staff reports is from Ms. Boutier, and I believe it's good news, Ms. Boutier.
Yes, through your worship. This is an announcement of municipal modernization program, intake 2. And I know there's been discussion at the council level about a possible strategic plan or strategic plan or study. However, I think it would be a better value for money if we would actually apply to implement the recommendation that came from the phase 1 municipal modernization, which was the upgrades to town suites. So I am recommending that we do apply for phase 2 funding in the amount of 353,200, which 65% would be potentially covered by the grant, which would total about $230,000.
I can talk all I want, but if I'm muted, you won't hear me. Before we get into discussion, I'll just let you know the resolution moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved, the council received the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 2 report, and that council directs staff to apply for the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 2 implementation stream for the migration to town suite project that is in line with the recommendations of the Modernization of Online Services report. Council. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier, and thank you, Julie. Good day. I had trouble understanding the one word you were talking about, which I think is something like town suite. Is that like toot suite? I mean, what is town suite? I guess I haven't seen it all in the report, but perhaps you could explain to me briefly. And I had one other question about the grant.
So through you, your worship, the town suite was a report that came forward in December where council agreed to move to a municipal ERP system. So this is the project. So even though council approved to fund that already, it would be a very good bang for our buck to apply for this grant to fund the implementation of the software. And then the council could then decide how to use those other funds that are already in our working fund reserve.
Thank you for that, and I guess we'll get after that toot suite and town suite, but sorry for being so corny. But the other thing that strikes me, and I think this was raised by CAO Gunby, was that it might be time for us again to consider doing a core services review. Would a core services review be able to be funded under this kind of funding?
Through your worship, yes, a core services review is a one stream of this funding, and it could be 100% funding. But in my opinion, you can only apply for one project. In my opinion, a core service review could be anywhere between $25,000 to $75,000. I think you'd get a bigger bang for your buck if we could fund the implementation of town suites through this program instead.
So, sorry, follow up, Mayor, if I may. So we've used up 60, with this town suite, we've used up 65% of an allowable 353,000. Is that what you're saying? We're going to be using 200 and some odd thousand of it?
No, there's multiple streams. So you can either go with a study, which would be 100% funding, or you can go with an implementation project, which is 65% funded. So you have to choose one or the other. And in my opinion, the implementation project, which is a direct recommendation from the phase 1 study that we've done in 2020, would be a better investment of the funds, allowable funds. So they could fund a project up to 250 for a study. I just don't believe that you would be getting that much money for a core service delivery review.
Thank you very much. We can chase after that ourselves, is what you're saying, but essentially.
Essentially, yeah. If we're successful, I think that we would have sufficient funds to do that without going through this granting process.
Thank you. Councillor Wojcik.
Well, thank you for the clarity. Similar to Mr. Cooper, I was thinking maybe we're getting a Marriott chain brought to town with the new town suites, but unfortunately it's a computer program. The longevity of a program like this, being at the township now for a few years, I've seen us implement other programs that maybe we don't get the typical life we would expect for, when you're spending $250,000 on something. Do you feel that the implementation of this system has a life of 10 years, 15 years? Like, I'd like to amortize stuff like this over a certain time period so I get a feeling of what we're spending per year to basically get to where we want to be, because I think it's of everybody's opinion that we need to be here. So is this a 5-year type of thing where we're going to have to look at spending this amount again? 10-year? What are your feelings on that, Julie?
My feeling is that this is a kind of system that I've been trying to scope out or / develop since the onset of my career in municipalities 10 years ago. I did not know that Sound Suite existed. I was actually hoping to do something very similar, possibly with the help of the province. I didn't know how I was going to get to the end result. But once Town Suite was discovered, so they're a small company that's out of the East Coast. I believe they have a lot of potential. They have had very few clients in their first 20 years of experience, but a lot more in the last 10 years. They're in the growing stages of their company. Only one of their clients so far have migrated out of their software in the last 30 years, and they beg to come back. And I've checked their references, and this is checked out. So I believe this software with them, because they invest more than half of their net profits at the end of the year back into development of the software and to meet their customer needs, which is only municipalities. I don't believe that we'll ever need to change unless something will come out that is mind-blowing beyond that, because I truly believe that they have put in their money where their mouth is.
Thank you very much for that. And I agree, longevity is important. If this is a system we're going to be using as far into the future as we can see, then I think it's money well spent, especially when most of it's being granted. So yeah, great, good idea.
Ms. Gunby.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that council has already approved this program a few months back. This report is just for direction to apply for funding.
And I think if I may add to that, I agree with Ms. Boutiette that this is the right thing to fund for two reasons. One is what we're spending is going to be more than what is available in grant money, so we can get whatever they're willing to give us. We're not putting the limit on it, the province would. And secondly, I think because it's perfectly consistent with the funding they gave us before, that continuity, we're now implementing what the recommendations, which is exactly what they want us to do, is modernize like this. I think the odds are that much more in our favor with this than any other application we may make. Any other comments? Does anybody need the resolution read a second time? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right. Financial Service Report 2021-10 on Information Technology Strategic Plan Progress. It's kind of connected with all this, isn't it? Ms. Boutiette.
Through your worship, yes, thank you. It is kind of connected. So I've got to say that kudos to everybody at the township for endorsing all the progress we've done in 2020 and also not being too difficult about the progress that we will continue to do in 2021. But this specific piece of the strategic plan is to connect all of our facilities under one network. So that means the same firewalls. This means that we will be able to print to any location that is owned by Georgian Bay, not only print, but the security systems, meaning the pass fobs and or security cameras will all be protected by the same firewall. So really the intent of this report is to tell you that we are progressing. So we did move to cloud services in 2020, but now we need to connect all of our locations under the same cloud and not have different accesses. This is something that has not been done in our past, but it really should be protected to equal level and not protected only limited to the internet connection protection that there is in each of the locations. So this report, even though we did present a networking project in the draft capital budget, this is to request that we sole source this capital project to Helix IT. One, I think it'd be very efficient to do so for the fact that they have been working with us for over a year now and they know our networks, they know where we're going, and they know how to get us there efficiently. And I'm also asking that we do accept the sole sourcing request with the condition that hardware is very easy to compare on the open market. So this means Google search on the internet, for example. And I think I'm in a position now to be able to assess reasonability of the time or labor quote. Therefore, I don't think we would be gouged on this project by not going to the open market.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, I'm really pleased to see while we are moving ahead on these projects, and if I can use that overused phrase now, modernizing our operations. And I think this is going to lead down the road to not only more efficiency, but better information sharing, which to me is the whole goal. Council, what's in front of me is moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Council receive the progress report number 4 on Information Technology Strategic Plan, and that Council agrees to sole source the supply install of the network equipment to Helix IT with the condition that staff will validate the hardware on the open markets and staff will ensure the labor costs quoted are reasonable. Again, this is all within our budget. Councillor Wienko.
I'm just doing some math here, and with the previous project we've talked about, that was going to be $300 and some thousand. This sole source is $32,000. I assume none of this stuff is to do with the council chambers. That was going to be another $100,000. Where are we going with all these costs? What is the total bill that we're putting into our facilities over the next year? It's getting up to well close to $500,000. I'm getting concerned with all these costs. Can we have maybe at some point a summary of all the costs we're doing to upgrade our facilities? And I don't know, but I don't know what other people think, but I think these costs are getting a little high.
Ms. Boutia.
Through your worship, IT strategic plan report 3 did outline the forecasted costs for the next 5 years. I must admit, it did not include AV council chambers, as this is seen more towards facility improvements, but I could definitely update that report to include the AV council chambers into that that 5-year forecast forward for IT costs.
Well, this is not 5 years. This is 1 year. So I'm more interested in the near future than in the long term. So I was hopefully maybe you can break it down by years, but it looks like it's going to be a lot of money spent in 2021.
All right, Councillor Bocek, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, sorry, this isn't a finance question about this system, but my understanding of this system is that everybody will be using the same system now. Are we considering or have we taken into consideration when we're doing our funding formula to have remote stations? And when I say remote stations, I mean the Baxter Ward Community Center, the rink in Mactier, the fire departments, the 1, 2, and 3 fire departments. Obviously, there is administrative work that gets done at each one of those locations, and data input would be important to be held in a central position. So I'm just wondering if, and it could be that I was just ignorant enough not to read the whole report initially, but I just want to make sure that we've covered those bases as well too, because we are not just a microcosm in this township. We are spread out over the township. Thank you.
Ms. Boutia.
Through your worship, that is exactly what this is about. It's about making sure that all the facilities are connected together, which will ease with, future work orders, future service requests, inputting of recreational data at the arena and at the Baxter Ward. All those will now be connected, and from any of those locations, depending on access, you'll be able to, like if you're a facility manager or recreation manager, you'll be able to, be on the phone with a customer and you'll be able to look up if that person has paid or not. So information sharing will be greatly enhanced with this system and this networking piece. So it's both software we've already discussed in our prior report. This is the hardware to make it all happen.
Great. And the hardware will obviously be replaced at all these locations with newer hardware. So great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Julie. And just a point of clarification with respect to the point that's been raised by Councillor Rianco. And by the way, I certainly support doing what we're doing here. I think it's very important to have these capabilities electronically and so forth. But one of the questions I had was that when you do come back to us with a report of what does this cost in 1 year and 3 years or 5 years, I'm assuming that would also include a net figure, because some of the costs are being covered by the government. So while they look like big numbers, in fact, our contribution is significantly lower. Is that not correct? If you take the whole project and put it down, let's say it's $700,000. Our part might be, I don't know, 200,000 or 300,000. I'm just making these numbers up, but there's a fair bit of support from provincial government. Is that not correct? Thank you.
Through you, your worship, that's very correct. And I believe that if this, the modernization phase 2 that we discussed prior to this report is successful, I still think implementation wise, we're still sitting at net zero. Therefore, I think that moving forward, the annual cost of these things will have to be borne by the taxpayer, but the implementation portion, we're still sitting at net zero with the 2019 funding that we've got, and then the phase 1 that we've got, and now the phase 2 application.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Would anybody like me to read the resolution one more time, or are you ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, let's flip the page. We have Operations Report 2021-03, Final Assumptions of Links Trail and Masters Court in Oak Bay.
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Sokash.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. So I think most people are familiar with the Oak Bay development. It's an interesting development, whereas some parts are condo and remain in private ownerships, and portions of it become property of the municipality. And that's what the township agreed to in the development agreement. So Links Trail and Masters Courts, which are the roads that are near the golf course clubhouse, those were agreed to by the township to become public roads once they were built to our specifications. There was a warranty period, etc. I believe the construction started in 2007 or 2008, and then there was a bankruptcy. And typically after construction is done, 2 years later, the township assumes it. Instead, in this case, it extended quite a bit longer. New owners came on board a couple of years ago. They've since tidied up areas where there were deficiencies. We have done a couple of inspections of the road as well as the drainage systems that we'll be assuming. We've had all the curbs changed out because they were breaking up. The last coat of asphalt has been applied. And at this point, myself as well as the township's consultants are recommending assumption of the development as they have fulfilled the terms of the agreement.
All right. Thank you. Any questions from council? Councillor Wojcik.
Yeah, thanks for the report, Brad. And you and I talk quite frequently about this kind of stuff. A couple of questions that I forgot to ask last time we spoke was, there is parking that is directly off of both of those roads. Currently, I believe there's parking in each space for about 5 or 6 cars. Are we going to be taking over those parking lots as well too, and having enforcement from our bylaw take care of those parking areas? I know right now there's signs on there that says something about resident parking only, or I forget what they say, but in the assumption of the road, are we also assuming those small parking lots throughout the community, and are we going to be enforcing parking bylaws on those parking lots?
Mr. Sokash.
Thank you. Through the mayor, the 2 parking areas are part of the condo corporation. They're not the township's responsibility. Therefore, we will not be maintaining them with respect to snow clearing or any other maintenance. As far as parking enforcement is concerned, I think that it would be better answered by the fire chief if he's available.
Chief Undum, are you available? Yes, you are.
So for enforcement of those parking areas, the township currently enforces that through a parking agreement with the condominium board that was approved about 3 years ago, I believe. So the condominium board would contact us if somebody's parking on their property, and then we would go up and ticket them and tow them if required.
So there'd be no change to that with this assumption of call it the road itself.
That's correct.
Thank you, Chief Van Dam. And I have a second question for Brad through you, Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions before mine.
You go ahead, and then we'll see if anybody else wants to jump in.
Thank you. Brad, a bone of contention with this assuming of this road has been the snow clearing. Obviously you have a road, then you have a small, maybe 1 foot wide median, then you have a sidewalk, then you have the front lawns. So winging the snow to the left or to the right is going to create a big problem. So the only other solution is to gather the snow and take it to an area, a holding area, and dump it, or take it to a holding area and then have it shipped away. So there's going to be costs involved in that as well. My question to you is, if we're going to wing the snow to the side, how are we, or what have you done about the sidewalk, snow shoveling, snow plowing, snow clearing? Because I believe that is going to be a municipal responsibility on these roads.
Mr. Sokash.
Through the mayor, snow management in that development is going to be difficult. I understand that when the township granted approval for the road widths and the design that is in there, we did it on the condition that the developer provide the township with a tractor with a snow blower in order to blow the snow into the trucks for movements. And we have that tractor and the blower, and we've been using it elsewhere in the township, and we will have to start using it in this location. As for the sidewalks, I expect to be bringing a report to council in a month or two, asking how council would like to deal with it. And there are a couple of options that council can consider. Through the past couple of winters, it appears that the developer has only been maintaining portions of the sidewalk. So the level of service that council wishes us to deliver in the future, I'm going to ask that that be considered in a future report.
Thank you. Councilors, anyone else with any questions? Councilor Yanko.
Yeah, I think you just answered one of my questions. It looks like we're going to be spending a little bit more time on keeping these roads clean of snow with having to remove the snow. We don't do that anywhere else. So I definitely think we're going to be spending a lot more time clearing these roads than any other roads. Where is this Master Court Road, or whatever it's called? Is that the circle on the map here is called Street B? I just don't see a name on any of the roads called Master's Court. Where is that?
Through the mayor, it is the loop that comes off of Lynx Trail. The project went through so many different phases, renaming of phases over the years, that I just selected one that most people were familiar with, and that's what we've used. But it is the loop that comes off of Lynx Trail.
Okay, what I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that council directs staff to prepare and bring forward the appropriate bylaw for council for the final assumption of Lynx Trail and Masters Crescent as public highways in accordance with Section 4, Part 5 of the Master Subdivision Agreement. And that upon adoption of the assumption bylaw, the township release the currently held securities in the amount of $148,743 minus $10,000 to the developer, and that the remaining portion of the $10,000 retained by the township be released after a period of 3 months upon confirmation that all township invoices for consulting and legal expenses related to this phase of the development have been reimbursed by the developer. Councillor Hazelton.
Yeah, sorry, just turning off noisemakers here. The question I have is, Brad, you told us that the Oak Bay people, or the condominium group, or whatever the entity is, provided a snow blower for snow removal.
That's correct.
So these things don't last forever. And what agreements do we have in place to ensure that whatever they have provided, which sounds like will be mandatory and needed, is available 24/7 whenever needed? And what kind of assurities should we be considering in the way of potential holdbacks to ensure that that equipment is available? Because according to Councillor Bocek, if snow removal is a problem and physically removing it is the only option, then it would seem to me that we don't want to, as a township, be left holding the bag in case this device that is required is no longer functioning.
Through the mayor, the tractor and snow blower are owned by the township. It's not owned by the developer. It's in our possession. We've been using it, maintaining it, and it's in reasonable condition. Like any other road maintenance equipment, it will have to be replaced at some point, and that will be at the taxpayer expense, much like a snow plow or a sidewalk plow or a sweeper. So I don't feel that we have any ability to request the developer provide us some sort of security or surety for replacement of the tractor or maintenance of the tractor. Once the road is assumed, which the township has an obligation to do, all of the expenses associated with the maintenance of the roads are the township's.
So just if I could continue, it sounds to me like we have made agreements that are going to result in a much higher cost to the township going forward than, say, other properties that we plow, etc. And I'm wondering what should we be doing in the future to ensure that the services provided are fully recovered by that community that requires this special service that isn't needed or delivered to other property owners.
Through the mayor, I'm going to answer it, I think, in a different way from what you asked. In my opinion, and consistent with the township policies, we should not be permitting roads of this width and this layout to be constructed in the township for assumption by the township. They should be 20 meters wide. There should be proper boulevards. In this case, for whatever reason, and it predates all of us, this was agreed to. So going forward, I hope the township would not consider permitting another road to be built to this standard, that it be built to the proper standard, which is 20-meter width and proper building setbacks, proper boulevards. So that's my roundabout answer to your question.
So thank you very much. A follow-up, Mayor Coetzee, is there some way that we can not lose the context and the value of what Brad just shared with us and find some way to have staff pick up an action item to bring forward a resolution for us for the future so that we don't make this kind of road sizing mistake again in the future?
Ms. Gunby.
Thank you. I don't need it. I'm sorry. I do not agree that direction is needed. It was previous staff, and all current staff are aware of the requirements, and it would not be approved.
Thank you.
If I may add, there is a township policy specifying the proper road widths, setback, etc.
Thank you.
Councillor Bocek.
Just to further what Council Hazelton was talking about, I thought we had a policy in place that this township would not assume any private roads, even if they were brought up to standards in the future. Am I misled on that information?
Through the mayor,
and I'm directing this at our operations director.
Through the mayor, this is a different context. The policy you're referring to are existing private roads that have been built either through Crown land on a road allowance, through private property that are used to service one or more properties. I believe the township has a policy saying basically that we won't assume those or take over those. them unless they're built up to the township standard. This is a development application, which is a totally different process, and in which it is common and appropriate, and I feel in Georgian Bay the same thing, that we should be assuming the roads provided they're built to our standards. Unfortunately, in this case, the township agreed to reduce standards, and that's what we have to live with. We have an obligation to take this over. We don't have options to not take this over.
And this was
So
an
again,
agreement.
to Councillor Hazelton's comments, we should take this very serious, because we do have new plan of subdivisions going to be submitted in the Port Severn area, especially with the new development, Port Severn Estates and everything else that's coming before us shortly, that we don't allow. And I don't know if we have a policy or procedure in place where it's very specific that if you're going to build a road, that we're going to assume it has to be to our standards and no varying from those standards. And if we don't have that in place, I think we need to get it in place.
Well, we were just informed by the CAO that such a policy does exist. I think unfortunately, the situation we have here is this was an agreement, a legal agreement made 15 years ago or whenever it was, that in hindsight, we may regret making it, but nonetheless, it's a legal obligation that we have. Hindsight usually is a little wiser than foresight.
Yeah.
All right. Do I need to read the resolution one more time, or are we all good? All right, then I'm simply going to ask all those in favor. All right, so that is carried. Thank you. Another operations report, Mr. Sokash, and that would be on the Port Severn Park Canteen.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you're not aware, there is a canteen located in Port Severn Park by the washrooms. That's part of the same building. It hasn't operated for 5 or 6 years. The previous tenant, I understand, occupied the space for about half of a summer and then left. Through a series of meetings that Ms. Nair has been holding, there is a company that has expressed interest in eventually occupying the Brissette House for their coffee business, but in the interim, and to get a foothold and to support their business, they approached us about using the canteen at Port Severn Park just for coffee and prepackaged foods, pops, things like that for the summer. In order to follow the township's policies, we issued an RFP. We only received one response, and that was from the Georgian Bay Coffee Company, I believe. So they're interested in using it. They're not proposing a fixed rate for the rental of the facility. Instead, they are proposing 11% of gross sales come to the township. So since it's a facility that hasn't been used for 5 or 6 years, there hasn't been any benefit to the community since there hasn't been anybody in there. There haven't been revenues coming in. We feel that this would be an appropriate use, at least for the next year. It's not a fixed amount of income, but it is somebody that's getting established, and the cost associated for the township will be minimal. There will be a marginal increase in electrical costs just from lighting and a couple of refrigerators, but there aren't any boilers or fryers or any kind of prepared food that's permitted. So at this point, we're recommending it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Bochek.
Thanks for the report, Brad. I think this is great for the community. I think this is great for the park, but 11%, I'm not real keen on that. I think there's other avenues that we can generate more revenue for the township, and it's just an administrative item, and that is that on each of the docks at the park, there is a water hookup, a power hookup, and an antenna hookup for overnight boating. All of those are controlled from inside of this canteen. The breakers are in there to turn them on and off, etc. Typical overnight stay in a marina for hydro water and such services is If the docking's free, it's about $20 or $25 for your services. I would like to enter into an agreement or an arrangement with the person who's leasing this to act as an agent for the township and provide those services to people that wish to stay overnight and want the hydro, water, etc. We went to, I forget what the number was, it was almost $350,000 to have these facilities put in, and for 8-9 years, never even been turned on once. I don't think that was the purpose of installing these units on the dock. So I would like to see a little thought towards having this commissioned agent be in there. Maybe the 11% is fine, providing they also collect the money for the services and utilities for overnight stays on the dock. And trust me, some people stay there for 3 or 4 days, free of charge. They don't have the sewer and water, or the water and the electricity, because there's nobody manning that canteen where it's all activated from. So some thought towards that, please, Brad.
Mr. Sokash.
Through the mayor, I'd be happy to discuss that with the agent. I think he may be interested in that, as he had briefly mentioned it in passing.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzer and Brad, and an interesting opportunity. And I'm quite intrigued with what Councillor Bocek is suggesting as well, so that's encouraging. The one thing I would like to comment on is sort of the future of Brissett House. As I understood it, and this is just really a cautionary comment, and that is that, as I understood it, would probably require quite a bit of money being spent on Brissett House in order to turn it over into something to accept a service like this, as I understand it. I think there are all sorts of safety code issues and so forth. So I just remind us all that there could be a big hit if we were to go to the second phase of this. Is that not correct, Brad?
Well, that is correct. If I was shaking my head, that was in error. I am agreeing with you.
I have one question, Mr. Sokash, and that is, will there be any significant cost for us to open up this canteen? If it hasn't been used for half a dozen years, how much work will be required to make it leasable, if I can use the phrase?
Through the mayor, it's actually in surprisingly good shape. There are a couple of paint cans we have to remove, and but otherwise we're in there fairly regularly. We did store some materials in there a couple of years ago, and after they were removed, we cleaned it out again. So it looks presentable, believe it or not.
Okay, thank you. In front of me, I have moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved that council directs staff to enter into a contract with Georgian Bay Coffee Company for the use of the canteen at Port Severn Park for the 2021 summer season in exchange for payment of 11% of the gross revenue generated from sales at the canteen. All those in favor? And that is carried. All right, I'm going to suggest to everyone, it's almost 12:30, that we take a lunch break and reconvene. You want to reconvene at 1:30 or do you want 1 o'clock, or how quickly do you want to get back to this? 1, I see.
1 o'clock.
1. Okay, let's get back together in 35 minutes at 1 o'clock. Councillor Hazelton may not show until 3 o'clock, but that's his business. All right, we'll see you at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
I saw you, Brian.
That was my little test.
Well, I believe I see that we've been streaming during the break. So basically, as soon as I see one or two more faces Ms. Way, then we can go ahead. Thank you. Okay. I'm hoping to see Mr. Bocek and Ms. Douglas shortly. Well, let's get this, let's reconvene our meeting and get the, and hopefully Ms. Douglas will be able to will be joining us very shortly. The next item on our agenda is Sustainability Report 2021-03. And Ms. Walton, I believe that is you. And would I be correct in saying that this is the first time you're presenting to council?
Yes, Your Worship, it is the first time.
Well, welcome then. Welcome to council, so to speak.
Thank you.
Even though I know you've been on board for quite some time now.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. So do I start now or?
Please.
Okay. So through you, Your Worship, thank you for this opportunity. The Brissett House Market would be an excellent addition to the Township of Georgian Bay. As we navigate through the COVID-19 framework and develop understandings of our businesses in the area, this market would provide our community organizations and small business an opportunity to showcase their products and services, while also providing to our residents access to healthy, local, sustainable goods. There will be an application process to commence as soon as this report is approved by council. Here we will determine the best vendors suited for the community and the market, and ensuring that there are no duplicated products. With 4 already confirmed vendors, support from the Historical Society, as well as Farmers Markets of Ontario, I believe that we have nothing but success to look forward to. I look at the Brissett House Market as a pilot project for markets in each one of the communities in future years. As you previously heard in the report 2021-04 from operations about the Port Severn Canteen, this offers an excellent opportunity for a partnership and more amenities to our growing population. The Brissett House Market will have a township brand booth, allowing for us the opportunity to communicate with our residents and visitors. This would allow us the weekly opportunities to share important news, direct people to our Engage Georgian Bay website, and for events that come up. So all in all, I think it should be passed. Thank you.
I guess we don't have to ask your opinion on this matter. Council, any questions or comments? And while they're thinking about it, I'm going to ask you, was this discussed with Hewitt, Hewitt Produce and their take on it? Because one day of the week, they'll be sharing the area with a lot of other vendors.
So I haven't had the opportunity to meet with them yet. I have reached out via email and phone, and I haven't heard any response back. I do believe that one day a week for an area that they also don't pay rent for, this is a great opportunity. I think it would direct more traffic to them as well. So I think it's a bonus on both sides. We would be using them as an anchor tenant, and they would be using us for more attractive purposes.
I believe I saw Councillor Wienko's hand.
Yeah, this is a great idea. This has been kind of in the planning for a number of years, especially with the Milne Cottage being there. This would attract a lot more visitors to the Brissett site and some of the displays there and so on. Yeah, it's great to have it for one day a week. Hopefully, if it's popular enough, maybe we can have it more often, or maybe even longer on a particular day. Like a Friday would be a best, or Saturday, something like that. We would get a lot more people going through, but I guess that's a popular time of the year. Do you have any idea, has the word got out yet, or do you have any idea how many vendors you'd be looking for, or how many that we can accommodate and so on? Any preliminary feedback on that?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Wienko. So I haven't really put it out to the public. All I did when I was investigating about this report is I reached out to current markets that were in our area within a 45-minute drive. So when you bring up, I'm going to answer your first question or statement regarding Fridays. That is the South Georgian Bay market in Midland, and they are large. They have a huge draw already, and I didn't want to compete with them. Because they are so big and people in the area go to that one. There's also an opportunity for us to expand, as you said, in other dates or in other times in other locations within our community. So I think once we establish our vendors and they get used to the way we run the market, then I do believe that we can look at those opportunities. I have not put it out to the general public for knowledge so that they know, because I wanted to bring this report to you first, as to not like broadside you with a Facebook post that says, hey, we're gonna possibly have a market. So I was waiting for that. So the only ones that I have confirmed are ones that I've kind of asked them also for their input regards to the report. So we're probably looking, I'd love to see, you know, we would be good with 5 people plus Hewitts. We would also be good with 10 people plus Hewitts. So I think anywhere from there would be a good start for us this season.
Yeah, the site is limited, but I think we can get enough people on site. Although with the COVID, you may have to spread them apart. No, the idea for Friday is that we're not competing. We'll never compete with Midland. Most of our traffic just goes north-south. So we've got a lot of people off the highway coming up early on a Friday and so on. Like a Friday afternoon, I think the markets could do very, very well just with highway traffic. So that's maybe something you can consider in future, because the traffic that we'll see through Port 7 is going north-south. They're not going east-west.
All right, thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
A couple of questions. This is a very interesting report, but a couple of questions with regards to Hewitts. Hewitts is not open every day of the week. What's their schedule currently?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Jarvis, I do believe that they were open every day, but only for 8 weeks. I'm asking to have a 12-week stint, and one day a week. They were open Monday through Friday, I do believe, but I haven't confirmed with them. Like I said, I haven't been able to speak with them.
Okay, so not on weekends then. I was trying to remember what their schedule was. I've been in there a couple of times. I'm just curious because it's a limited opening from 9 until 1 on one day of the week, and not a day of the week that seasonal residents, unless they're up there, you know, for an extended period of time, would be able to access it. Why was that date and time chosen?
So what we did is, well, I did a lot of research to discover like who was open, what times were accommodable. So when we're also looking for vendors, it's not necessarily the competition, but it's also looking for those vendors. So those vendors who we want at our Brissette House Market are also not available every day of the week. So when I was looking for a day that they would be available, it was Tuesdays, because that was the only day that there was not a market within the area. A lot of the vendors that we would be seeking would be busy every other day. And when I surveyed them, I want to say that there was 16 different vendors that answered my survey. I did ask probably 24, and 16 responded with Tuesday was perfect. They had no problems with that, and it didn't interfere with maybe a busier market that's already well established. So I think for our first year, this is definitely a good day to choose, because it wasn't in competition for our vendors or also for other markets in the area.
Thank you.
Councillor Hazelton, followed by Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, Mayor Coots here. So Trish, nice to meet you virtually. I think the project you're working on is good. I did want to just remind you that there are far more people that are water access in our community than there are road access. And I have seen in the past Hewitts come in and set up tables at Nautilus Marina. And I'm not saying Nautilus is necessarily the right place, but I think that there is likely a huge demand by water access people to be able to get access to a garden, a market kind of thing. And I know that's not the context of this request that you have in front of us, but I would please ask you to consider that in the future, because I think that there is a huge need and virtually nothing available.
And we know some wonderful docks in Honey Harbor that will soon be available to serve that, help serve that need. Just saying. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, just on the last point, in the interim, I think it could be useful to consider Church Bay, because we do have docks there already. We do have some land there presently. So just throwing that out for you. I know it's not about this approval, but I thought Councillor Hazelton's suggestion a good one, but I think Church Bay is where the real action is. It's where the store is. It's where people tend to come and access their favorite spot, the liquor store. And so just throw that out there. As far as days of the week, I think Councillor Jarvis made some interesting points with respect to when the customers are there versus when somebody has a day available. So I think it's an important thing to remember to tell potential people that would be coming into the site with whatever they're selling to consider when the traffic's there. And maybe things have changed, but once we get out of COVID, I think we're going to find that trends are going to be very similar, and that is that people come up on Friday anywhere from noon till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So that's when the real action is. Going home tends to be anywhere from Sunday noon to Monday noon to Tuesday noon or not at all. So Friday afternoon is hot. And if these exhibitors are tied up elsewhere, I understand that. But if they're not, I'm suggesting the highest opportunity is Friday afternoon. So just a couple of thoughts for you. Thank you.
Councillor Wojcik.
Well, thanks, Trish, for the report, and thanks for joining us for the first time. We won't be too hard on you. 3 questions, actually. Very simple. First one is, are they going to sell butter tarts? Just kidding. The question that I've been asked over and over since this has kind of become a rumor in my ward that this might happen. What is it going to take in tax dollars, tax supported dollars to do this? Or will there be any implication to our taxpayers? And has that been given consideration? That'd be my first question.
Okay, so through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Wojcik, what we've planned is a fully sustainable market, so it sustains itself with admission fees for the tables. So we're looking at $25 per table and a marketing plan that is low cost, as well as, there shouldn't be any additional cost to us. So $25 per table for no access to hydro, $35 to cover the cost of hydro for those tables. The market should sustain itself. I don't believe that there would be any additional fees to operate the market. We've looked at insurance. Insurance is covered because it will be held on township property, so that's the benefit. We will have each vendor have their own insurance and name us on the rider. So to answer your question in short, no additional fees to the taxpayer.
Okay, and my other question or concern is we do have businesses here that do offer services. The Honey Harbor Food Town, of course, has a good produce department in that. So we should be aware and concerned that if we're going to be open at certain times, that we don't interfere in their particular business and take business away from them who are tax-paying businesses in this township. So that being a part of your consideration as you move forward, as far as locations, future locations, time that it'll be open or time it won't be open, just take into consideration our local business people as well too. Thank you.
So if I may address that, it is known that 70% of people who are at the market also then filter out through the community to spend their money. So if they're coming to town that day, chances are, we may not have a meat vendor. They're going to have to go to the grocery store. They're going to have to go, in other places, and not have to, but they will choose to. They'll make it all in one day. I don't believe at any point, I've been a part of other farmers markets, but I haven't been the one who organized it right from the get-go. So this will be my first one, and I'm very excited about it. But not one of those farmers markets interfered. They actually grew businesses that were happening in the area. So it's just another, like I said in the introduction, I believe that it's an opportunity to offer another amenity to our visitors and our residents.
Awesome. Well thought out. Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Coutier. Thank you, Trish, for your information and presentation today. Maybe I can just also suggest to you that just in terms of what Councillor Bochuk is saying, maybe there could be some sort of a discounted rate for our local businesses to put a table in and represent themselves. I think a lot of the smaller grocery type businesses may be very interested in that, actually. I think that has been done in other areas for sure. But thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, I think this is quite exciting. And as you can tell from some of the council's questions and all that, they can't wait that you have a handful of markets in the township. And on most days, but I don't know, that might be a little too far initially, but I think this is an interesting project. What I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved that council directs staff to continue to work with local businesses to establish a Brissette House market for the 2021 season, and report back to council in the winter of 2021-2022, and that user fees range from $25 to $35 per week or $250 per season. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. So I can say, Ms. Walton, go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next on our list is Sustainability Report 2021-04. And that, I believe, is Ms. Schneier.
Thank you, Your Worship. This has been a long awaiting, and we are pleased to provide you with a 2-page summary as requested by Council to provide you with some quick action guidelines as you consider opportunities that are put in front of you each time we meet in Council or Committee of the Whole. So the attachment is a part of this presentation today, and you'll see that based on the Council we had a council meeting a wee while back where we narrowed our goals from 6 to 5 at your request, and then ensured that there was an opportunity for everybody to provide feedback to what was included. We then met you all again in November, I believe, although I have to look at my report, and we talked about some important overall considerations about our First Nations communities, about cultural diversity, and then also the environment. So these are all included in our strategic plan summary. And with your will, we would like to be able to use this as a guiding document at the staff level to ensure that reports that we bring to you will fall within any one of these goals, missions, or visions.
All right, thank you. Council, any comments? Not seeing any hands. I'm going to raise one. Oh, okay, Councillor Jarvis, you got in just ahead of me.
Just under the wire there. That's good. I'm a little concerned now. I wasn't before. But under transparency within government, we have this phrase, "We are all in this together" message. And that has become a bit of a misnomer in this COVID environment, in that many people feel that it's a very becoming more and more a condescending message, in that we are not in this together. Those that have a means of greater wealth have better access to things than those without. And those without seem to be suffering more as a result of the pandemic than those that have. And I don't know whether it means we should be reconsidering this, or maybe rephrasing it, or removing it, but I don't know that it has the connotation now that it did even 6 months ago. And I'm a little concerned for that message.
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor Jarvis, I'm afraid I'm not as familiar as you are with the concerns of that comment. If it's your will to have it removed, we can definitely take it out.
I'm not suggesting
if that's the will of council.
Perhaps reconsidering it or rephrasing it. Again, there's been a fair bit of print recently with regards to the fact that the "we are in this together" message, as it relates to the pandemic, doesn't have the same meaning that it seemed to have not that long ago. And I don't know if it's going to affect us at all in that context, but I just think it should be reconsidered. That's all. I'm not suggesting we remove it at this time.
Councillor Douglas.
I'm just kind of curious, Councillor Jarvis. I'm not sure I understand what, yeah, can you give us an example? Because I'm not that I'm questioning it, I just don't know exactly what you mean. You can consider it at this point.
The message "we are in this together" is being used by governments, federal, provincial, and us as well. And it feels to many, those that are less fortunate than ourselves, that we are using it to try and group everybody together as being obviously in this together, when in fact, those of greater affluence, excuse me, not influence, but affluence, seem to be doing better during the pandemic than those of lesser affluence. And they consider the message, therefore, to be somewhat condescending in that regard, in that we're trying to group everybody together when in fact it's not the same playing field for everybody. That's all I'm coming at. The only thing I'm worried about on this message. Again, it may not have any net effect in our area, but we do have a significant portion of our population that is lower income, that is on some sort of support of one way or another, and this may have a wrong meaning to them. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, okay.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, that does help, actually. If I can just comment on that.
Please.
I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying by any means, but I'm just wondering if we should be trying to promote the fact that we are hoping that we're all together. And I mean, I guess there's a couple of ways of looking at that. There's some pretty hard facts in life anywhere you go with the disparity between the more affluent and not so much. But I would like to think as a township, we're going to try and be all together with this, regardless of the fact of where it sits. But like the hope is, I don't know. I understand what you're saying about your messaging, but I'm not sure whether it'd be a good idea to pull it out there and say we're not really all together, or maybe say nothing. But anyways, thank you.
All right, I'm going to just add my comment, and that is that there's a couple of spots here where I think there are typos or it needs a little bit of editing. Point 3.1, other than the obvious typo where an S is missing, reduce taxes reductions where possible. If you're reducing a reduction, aren't you increasing taxes? I mean, sorry,
Your Worship,
but
no, it's very relevant. I believe that you may have a wrong version, and although I'm not 100% sure, we will definitely clean this up to ensure that your intentions are clearly articulated. Although, Your Worship, I would like some council direction as to whether or not I am or am not taking out this "we are in this together."
From my take, I think that Councillor Jarvis has raised a real concern that, if some are going to misinterpret that, we would rather not give them that opportunity, because nothing against I'll call it intention. But I think that the trouble is if you use an expression that gets some lousy press, then people sometimes concentrate on the lousy press more than they concentrate on the intention. That would be my concern. Councillor Cooper, did I see your hand? Oh, okay, Councillor Hazelton, sorry.
I have a question here. First of all, I would appreciate a clean copy of this, because the one that was provided has been clobbered by, I think, a PDF construct. But anyways, the question I have is there a meaning to the sequence of items in each goal?
Ms. Schneider.
Your Worship, no, there's not.
Thank you.
Any other comments at this point? Councillor Jarvis.
I'm really having trouble with this one point that I just brought up. But before we get to that, going back down to 3.1, I think it should just reduce taxes where possible. So, Because I have tax spelled T-A-X-E. There's no S on it at all in my version that I'm looking at here.
Yes, your worship, through your worship, Councilor Jarvis, I believe it really is the wrong, with some typos, but we will gladly clean this up and get a version back to you. If you'd like us to bring it back to council next month, we can do that as well.
Then I'm taking my next step, which would be take this "we are in this together" message. I think that maybe in light of the fact that if we get pinned with it, we're gonna have a hard time unpinning ourselves from it. That we either, can we try and rephrase it, I guess is the better way of putting it. So it looks like it's something that's more original to our community, just a thought, and otherwise maybe remove it, or be my thoughts.
Through your worship, this language did come from that one afternoon that we all spent together. And I appreciate that COVID has changed the perspective of that. I believe that in that particular circumstance, it may work out quite nicely just to take it right out and to activate community ambassadors and reestablish the Georgian Bay Conference, because that was the intention of your comment at the time, was to bring all of the, I believe the language you used was the Georgian Bay 5 back to a table to be able to collaborate for the greater good. So if we just take out that statement, your intentions will remain the same. And as for 3.1, we will clean it up with your direct intentions.
Yeah. And I also, there are a couple other minor typos, and I think, I think the best thing we can do actually is do a cleanup and bring it back to us next month. Because I like the fact that we've taken a large document and reduced it to a one sheet, 2 sides document with and to me, the 5 goals are as much as anything a value statement, and that, how about we bring this back next month with a couple of changes, and if anybody has any input that they want to provide in the next week or two, do it fairly quickly. I think that might serve us all best.
Thank you, Your Worship. I apologize for what is in front of you.
Well, I applaud the effort, though. It's good.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's. I like where we're going. The trouble is, it's like the marathon, and you see the goal line up there, but you haven't quite made it yet. With this, and we can blame the PDF system. All right, let's move on to.
Your Worship, are you officially deferring this matter?
Let's officially defer it.
Thank you.
I love the clerk paying attention, making sure we do things the right way.
Mayor, if we're going to do it the right way, we need to vote on a deferral.
No, we don't. Councillor Hazelton, are you in favor of deferral?
Sure.
Okay. Council, I keep getting this debate back and forth whether we need to or not, but all those in favor of deferral. All right, that has carried. So now, Karen, we have it both ways. And you're up for the next 2 items, Ms. Way, I believe.
Well, one of them for today. The other 2 I'm going to save for tomorrow, but yes.
Oh, yeah, I can see why you'd save those for tomorrow, because there's delegations in their regard.
Correct.
Sorry, thank you. So let's do the lease of the Honey Harbor Park Landing, because I presume that's the one you want for today.
Yes, it is. So attached is the final lease agreement. Well, actually, I sent up the final version, was emailed earlier today because that's when I received it. There's just a couple of minor changes from the version that is attached to the agenda for the final lease agreement for the Honey Harbor Landing with Remax Baywatch Limited. So I'm just looking for final approval to execute this agreement so the mayor and I can sign it. But it includes all the terms that were discussed back in November.
Council, with your lawyer's hat on, any comments? Okay. So far, I don't hear any. So I'm going to say, what I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that council receive the report regarding the lease of Honey Harbor Park Landing, and that the mayor and clerk be directed to execute a lease agreement for Unit 1 of 2587 Honey Harbor Road, or Honey Harbor Park Landing. Councillor Bocek.
Going through my records, initially I had an indirect pecuniary interest here, and I'd like to declare, I'm sorry I didn't realize, I thought this was for the library portion of that building, so I do need to declare.
All right.
I won't vote.
No. Anyone else? All those in favor? All right, that is carried. And be it noted that Councillor Bocek did not vote. Bocek, sorry.
So I believe we're on to new business 11A.
Yes, that's. All right. So now, Councillor Bocek, you better get back in the meeting because this one's yours.
Thank you. Without going off screen to my download of the agenda, which one is this?
This is regards to the bike lane on Honey Harbor Road in Port Severn.
Yes, correct. Well, most of council, I don't know about the new councilors, but this has certainly been a very big topic over my last 6.5 years on council. And it's never really seemed to gain any traction as far as a funding formula goes. So we have had petitions from people, well, I can't say the majority of Oak Bay, pretty much all of Oak Bay and the surrounding neighborhoods. And for those who are not familiar with the surrounding neighborhoods, the people that use Honey Harbor Road to commute by foot or by bike are quite vast. You have the Oak Bay development, you have the Leduc Lane, the community center, you have the Hillside survey, and a new 450 or 500 home development that is under development just across the street from this. So there is a lot of foot traffic. There's a lot of bike traffic. And Honey Harbor Road is a very, very dangerous road to walk on for a number of reasons. Not to mention that it is the main thoroughfare that goes from the Highway 400 corridor into Honey Harbor to service a majority of the island residents and Honey Harbor residents. And it's very dangerous. Winter months, summer months, it's year-round danger. And what we need to do as a council here is look at how are we going to accomplish this in this term of council? Because if it keeps getting put off to the side, it's never going to get done. So I'm asking for the participation of staff to come back to us through operations and through our EDO or our sustainability officer to look at the logistics of getting this path installed from the Baxter Ward Community Center to the Port Severn Park, which basically is paving the shoulder and putting a line on it. And that's it. Pave the shoulder and put a line on it for walking and biking. We have preschool, pre-kindergarten, where the kids during the summer months walk that whole way on Honey Harbor Road from the community center up to Port Severn Park. And you'll see a car with a flashing light on it on the roof, 10 or 15 kids walking on the shoulder and some parents out front. And the cars are whipping by at 80 kilometers an hour. We just need a safe space where they're not going to stumble and fall. The shoulder is very unstable, very unlevel. Our constituents, our residents have asked repeatedly for this to be done. So I think we need to take action now. We got to find out how we can do it, who's going to fund it. We know it's a district road, so there's going to be a lot of work to have to be done to promote this to the district. But what I'm looking for from this council is a will and a want to discover what we need to do moving forward to get the funding in place to get this built and get the other tiers of government to support it. So we're going to need a resolution from this council, I believe, to go to district, because it's going to be a push from us to district to get this path done. maybe the township can fund some, the district, the province, some sort of grants. We have to look at that avenue, but I think really what I'm looking for here is to get staff involved in a way that we have a path forward and we get this thing constructed. So that's.
Okay, Ms. Gunby, you want to?
Thank you. And no pun intended with a path forward, right, Councillor Bojack? I just wanted to remind council that it was in 2019 where we passed a resolution asking the district to provide us with funding from their active transportation fund. And they took that to their committee and it was denied. And district staff was then directed to work further with us, local property owners and other stakeholders to further investigate the feasibility and cost sharing opportunities of implementing it. So we have already asked the district for funding and they've said no. So unless you want to ask them for something else via resolution, they've already been directed to work with us, but I've never been approached and I don't know if Brad has been approached to be worked with from the district.
Before I talk to all the councillors, a fair portion of that would be provincial. The underpass, is that not all provincial, not district road?
There's a certain radius that is. I'm not sure at the top of my head.
And so therefore the province would have to be actively involved in anything if something were to take place. All right, I think the first hand I saw was Councillor Cooper, but then I saw a bunch of others. So we'll start with Councillor Cooper. I see Councillor Douglas at the moment, and I think and Councillor Wienko. So let's start that way, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kutsier and Councillor Bojack. I think this is a worthy endeavor. I certainly would support it. I do think that we need to get some funding. We need to find out, first of all, what it's going to cost, and staff can help us with that. But I think in terms of getting funding, it may be provincial, but I also think it could be district related, and they may have turned us down in the past, but I think it's important to remember that we have Councillor Wienko on the committee that I think would actually allocate the funds for this, or Mayor Kutsier, one of the two. And frankly, with the money that we send over to the district, if they can't come back with a little bit, we ought to be pretty upset about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Wienko.
Thank you, Mayor Coetzee. Well, just to echo what Councillor Cooper just said, I fully agree with what he has to say. And yeah, we're always seeming to be a little bit upset with district at the moment for what they're not sending back to us. But I can't agree with you more, Brian, and thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention. This is something that our township is expanding. We are trying to develop the Honey Harbor waterfront community, as well as all the Oak Bay and other communities that already exist. Not to mention, that has got to be one of the worst, most dangerous roads I've ever been on, as far as potholes and, well, just in every word, it's just a bad road in our township. And it does serve like all of our Georgian Bay community as well, you know, for our seasonal people. I just think it's a fantastic thing, and I think we should be pushing very hard between the staff and our district councillors to take another run at this and make this happen. We are doing nothing but growing out in that direction towards Honey Harbor and Port Severn, and I think it's something that we shouldn't take a back seat to. If they say no once, let's take a run at them again. It's not something that I think we should let go very easily. Thank you for bringing the report.
Thank you. Councillor Wienko.
Yeah, we had the same situation up in MacTier, and it was only a matter of months before we got the district involved in paving the shoulders into MacTier and back, and we shared half the costs. And I don't think this is any different. The frustrating part of it is that the district will want to pave both sides of the road because you can only go in one direction. And this is so basically the cost basically doubles when you have to do both sides. But it would be nice just to do one side, but I think you're probably not doing both sides. But I think I don't know what the resolution was that went to the district. I don't recall it being brought up at the committee level, but yes, I think we should send another resolution up there, and I'll support it at the committee level. But I think in the resolution, we have to say that the township is willing to pay half of the costs. Let's make that as one of the conditions for the district approval, is that we pay half. And even if we we can't get permission for the NTO to pave under the bridges, Yeah, so we leave it gravel, so what, eh? They can still go a few yards on gravel and then get back onto some pavement. So I'm not too worried about getting MTO. That may be a whole career to get them to approve that. So let's get what we can done in the way of paving. But if a resolution goes up to district, indicate that we'll pay half.
Councillor Douglas, one more time.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is there any funding for any of this upgrading of the, sorry, we were talking about this earlier today. Anyways, is there any public funding for this from a federal or provincial level? Can we leave that, ask that of staff? I don't know if we have anything available that would help us, but I know it'll be fairly expensive to do this. And if we could get funding in any way at all, if that fits into any of the programs that are out there right now, I think that would be really helpful.
Ms. Schneider, did I see your hand?
Yes, Your Worship, through you, Councillor Douglas. The issue is that it's a district road, and it's very difficult for us at our lower tier to be able to apply for funding when we don't have the asset in our roster. So I have been on this active transportation ad hoc committee for 14 years, be it at Lake of Bays and still here. And, you know, there was discussion about share the road, and when the district paved District Road 5 a number of years ago during my tenure here, it was very surprising that they didn't opt to add the shoulder when the Active Transportation Committee was working very hard and advocating for it. So to answer your question, I don't think that there would be funding for that type of public space in terms of directional signage, especially during COVID, but we are looking to explore other options where there will be public spaces to support directional signage for active transportation. So we're trying, it's just very difficult for sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Maybe we should consider having that become a township road versus a district road, considering we do a lot of the maintenance on it anyway. That's just thinking bigger picture, because it doesn't leave our township, that road. I saw Councillor Jarvis's hand, followed by Councillor Rienko.
Yeah, I too appreciate this subject being brought up. I'm a avid cyclist, and I've seen cyclists on this road, not to mention pedestrians. And I can't agree more with what Councillor Bocek said, and backed up by Councillor Douglas, in that it's a rather dangerous road to be on unless you're in a motorized vehicle of some sort. I would very much be in favor of promoting a paved shoulder for bike lane. I also understand that it isn't an inexpensive proposition, and I'm hoping we can find some way around that. But I would support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Rienko, followed by Councillor Bocek, please.
Just for your information, Mr. Mayor, you brought up a couple of times the idea of the township taking over district roads. That discussion has been ongoing for years at the district during my term. And a decision was made, I think it was at the committee level or at the district council level, that there wasn't enough interest within the district to pursue it any further. So basically, I confirmed with the committee, the engineering committee, I think it was 2 or 3 months back, that is a dead issue from the district's point of view. So it has been discussed in length. I know Larry was on to it for years, but now it's a dead issue because of lack of interest from other townships.
I'm going to save my response for unrecorded times. So Councillor Bocek, followed by Councillor Douglas.
Thank you for letting me speak again on this topic. One of the things our township council agreed to was allow ATVs to be used on municipal and district roads in our township. If you go to the OPP says that if you're going to drive, now remember, these aren't dirt bikes. These are quad runners, 6-passenger, all-terrain vehicles. The OPP says in order to drive on our municipal roads, you have to have one wheel on the shoulder or wheels on the shoulder and wheels on the road, not traveling at more than 20 kilometers an hour, plated, licensed, and insured. When people go for a walk on the shoulder of Honey Harbor Road, all of a sudden you're getting an ATV coming right on the shoulder, right behind you. You got to jump out of the way or go out onto the road. The initial installing of a multi-use path between the community center and the Port Severn Park was an initial small segment of what I wanted to achieve, which is to get a path from Honey Harbor all the way the full length of District Road 5 into Port Severn, so that people can come off the islands, get on their bikes and go for a nice 15K ride. Tourists can come to the area, park at the park, cycle into Honey Harbor, cycle back out. There's a great opportunity that we're missing here for tourism. There's a great opportunity for healthy lifestyles, safety being the first concern. I don't think as a council, or especially my way of thinking, we can let this ball drop. It's been going on too long, and we've had too many no's from too many people, and we need to figure this out.
Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Cooper.
So that's an interesting point you bring up, Brian. Maybe if we can't deal with it by way of putting in shoulders on the road, mind you, that road does need fixing. Is there an opportunity to, I'm not really quite sure what land's available, but is there an opportunity to actually run a path from Port Severn all the way down to Honey Harbor to the waterfront, through the bush area, or through vacant land, or do we have vacant land that could be used? And maybe we should start looking at that to actually make it usable. It's away from traffic for the bikes and for the kids. And is that possible? I actually don't know, but maybe that's an easier path for us.
Ms. Schneier.
Through your worship, I apologize if I'm mistaken, but I believe that there is actually something in our official plan that identifies an active transportation route that takes you from Port Severn to Honey Harbor with a small portion along Honey Harbor Road. And we are talking about Point au Pen, our Schoolhouse Trail. We're talking about the old bridge on the way to Honey Harbor. And then there are other trails in other small communities that sort of allow people to wiggle through and get access to trails. So if I remember correctly, I believe there is one, and it identified the small portion, well, not too small, but small enough portion of the District Road 5 that would need to have an organized shoulder in order for it to be successful. But then I also start to think about the Georgian Bay Coastal Trail, which we did bring to council to you in 2019, maybe 20, where a specified route actually does take you in and out of Honey Harbor on the Georgian Bay coastal route. And you will be seeing some signs coming in from that. Now, again, that's not on a paved shoulder, but it does show that there is an absolute interest from other organizations to come into Georgian Bay, come into the community of Honey Harbor by bike. And so when we start to think about this, we might want to consider those two documents to support our plight. And I'm just looking through the official plan. Now, I know it's an addendum in there, and it does show the mapping that you consider, or perhaps a previous council considered for a route to get you from, this is Councillor Douglas is suggesting, from Port Severn to Honey Harbor with as least amount of time on District Road 5.
Can I just answer to that, just if I may? Would that, if we were going to do something like that, Ms. Schneier, would we be able to look to see what the cost would be involved if we could put this all together to have that actually paved or made to a point that it is rideable by bikes? I mean, I think it would have to be paved for most of the bikes, to find out what a cost would be involved in that, to get it all connected.
I think through your worship, Councillor Douglas, I think that my role here would just be to provide advocacy of groups that are already existing. It falls back to the reality that it is a district road. And so it's difficult for us to identify the cost associated with this when it's not our road. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there are other organizations that are interested in being in this, I think that I would certainly be able to support the plight by making sure that our collaborative stakeholders are interested in doing this as well. As a note of interest, Councillor Douglas, this route also goes through MacTier, so they're very interested in the community of Georgian Bay as a whole.
Okay, Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Bochuk, and then I think we're going to try to wrap this up because it seems to me that we're preaching to the converted. Councillor Cooper.
I just want to reiterate my support for this, and I wanted to suggest at the end of, just before the vote, that we go into closed session so our mayor can express himself. Thank you.
We do have upcoming closed session either later today or tomorrow.
I was kidding.
Councillor Bochuk, I'm going to give the last word to you, and then
Okay.
I believe Ms. Way has actually prepared a amended resolution for our consideration.
Great. And thanks, Jennifer Schneier, for your comments there on that trail. The problem with the existing trail is from Oak Bay, you have to walk 4 kilometers down Honey Harbor Road to gain access to that trail at the old Amici's restaurant, or walk up to the Highway 400 to Violet Drive, which is the path that we're asking to be paved. To gain access to the Schoolhouse Trail, you would have to walk from Oak Bay on the shoulder all the way up to the 400, down Violet Drive, and then onto the trail there. It is that portion of the road that people are wanting to use. So access to the existing trail is not an answer for anybody who wants to go for a walk from any of the communities around here. So I'll leave it at that, and interested to hear what we have for a resolution.
Ms. Way, can you show us your handiwork? Oh, sorry, Ms. Schneier, did I cut you off?
Your worship, can I share my screen real quick? I'll show you the route that I'm talking about, and it has already been identified by the district as an active transportation route, which should provide some support for this. Would it be okay with you if I did that real quick?
Please. That was a yes.
Ms. Way. Not yet. I can't do it yet. Oh, maybe it's Julie. I got it. Okay. Thank you. Can you see my screen there?
Yes, we can.
The right screen with mapping?
It's got a map on it with different colors, and then there's a red dotted line going from Honey Harbor to Port Severn.
Okay, so this is something that I know this exists in our official plan, and it does reference existing trails in the yellow, which you can see for the Point, Open, or Schoolhouse Trail, as well as the ATV trail where can you see my cursor move as I do this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so there's this one, and then the route also goes up over the bridge and then takes you out to Honey Harbor Road, which is right across the road from the Moore Point Trail, which is proposed, but you could certainly ride your bike through the Moore Point community and come back out to Schoolhouse Trail, to District Road 5. And then you see here is the old 501 bridge trail as well. So you can get pretty far with off-road trails. You can get as far as Macy Bay, and then a long time ago, there was some proposed routes inside the Macy Bay development, brings you back. It's just a loop, but it brings you back out to District Road 5 and then out. So we brought this to the Georgian Bay coastal route because council had approved this official plan, and it was a really great document for us to be able to say, hey, this is something that our community wants. So I just thought I would share it with you that in many ways you can get pretty far, but you can't get the whole way. And that's why we identified for Class A, this dotted line that with the district already, which may help you, Councillor Wyanko, that this was already proposed as a district active transportation route. I hope that helps.
All right.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you, Councillor Wyanko, if you have any comments.
Why don't you send it to all council? I'm sure that they would.
I will do that. I will do that. I apologize for sort of taking over this little show here, but I just wanted to share this with you because it was very relevant, and I knew it existed. I just had to find it.
I'll admit to you, the mayor has a weakness for maps, so when in doubt, send him a map.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Ms. Way, can you share the screen with your suggested wording of a resolution? Be it resolved that council endorse the installation of bike lanes on Honey Harbor Road in Port Severn for the following reasons. Increase Increasing with boating and cottage destination traffic. Oak Bay community continues to be developed. Increased pedestrian bicycle traffic. Thank you for doing that on the fly. Increased access to commercial areas of Port Severn and reduction of gas emissions from vehicular traffic. And that the District of Muskoka be requested to review the installation of bike lanes on Honey Harbor Road in Port Severn, and that the Township of Georgian Bay commit to funding half of the installation costs, and that this resolution be circulated to the District of Muskoka Council and Roads Department. Council, any comments? I see Councilor Yanko's hand followed by Councilor Bocheck at this point with regards to this resolution. Thank you.
I think this resolution is too much of an ask for a district right now. I think if we take it a little bit more piecemeal and just ask for a trail between Oak Bay and Port Severn initially, and then maybe we can talk about the trail out to Honey Harbor later. Or if we're going to be doing this, and then maybe that map can be included on this resolution, and we can mark on that map the sections of district road that we need upgraded and so on. But to send that resolution to the district adding for a trail between Honey Harbor and Port Severn, I don't think it's going to get a lot of traction. It's just too long a distance and it's too expensive. And I think committees and council probably wouldn't accept it as a whole. But a smaller one between Port Severn and Oak Bay might be more palatable.
Ms. Way.
I'm going to say bike lanes on Honey Harbor Road from Oak Bay to Port Severn Park, because that seems to be the main chunk.
That's more manageable, and maybe that could be priority one, and then maybe the Honey Harbor thing could be priority two. But I think going small is better than going for the whole thing, because I don't think you get the whole thing.
I wonder if we should make that Baxter Ward Community Center versus Oak Bay, because then it's a public address, so to speak.
Yep.
Councilor Cooper, no, sorry, I had Councilor Bocheck followed by Councilor Cooper, followed by Councilor Douglas.
Yeah, that was my point exactly. I'd like to maybe in this resolution to just call this phase one, and it would be from the Baxter Ward Community Center to give access to the Port Severn Park. Just a full disclosure here, if you agree, if council agrees to this resolution, I'm coming after you in the 2022 budget for some funding on this, just so you're aware.
We've been warned. Councilor Cooper, followed by Councilor Douglas.
Very briefly, that's exactly the point I was going to make. We send the map with this, but we say this is phase one, and you may hear from us in the future, this kind of thing. But I start with phase one.
Councilor Douglas.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I just have a quick question. One, I think that we should put something in there for the safety of children as well. It always probably looks a little bit better. But also, I have a question for Councilor Wayanko. When this went to the committee in regards to assuming roads, was that all roads, or can we specifically ask for one road to be assumed? I mean, would that be more manageable?
Do you want me to respond?
Sure.
I think the original, under previous councils, the idea was discussed at a number of committees up at the district, not just the engineering committee, but also the finance committee, about the option of various townships taking over district roads. And once they got the sharp pencils out, they realized that there would be quite a cost. Like, for example, I would never agree to take over some of the district roads that are in poor condition, because then it would be our responsibility to upgrade them. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars. So then you would have to have the district provide the funding to do that. And it got so complicated that the district said, you know, we're not going to give you the road and then tens of millions of dollars for you to upgrade it and so on. And it just got right down into the mud, and people said, forget it. There may be the option of taking over certain roads, like, for example, the Honey Harbor Road could be considered, or even the South Bay Road, because they're brand new roads. Even White Falls Road, I guess, is brand new. But some of the roads, district roads right now require quite a bit of work, like 12 Mile Bay Road, South Gibson Lake Road. I would never agree to take them over because it's going to be tens of millions of dollars have to be spent on those roads. So it gets really difficult. How much money do they give us to look after these brand new roads that we're assuming, and how do we maintain and all that? And all the townships got said, okay, forget it. That's not worth the effort.
Can I just supplement to that? I mean, I think the question that I really had here was more, is there an opportunity as a council in the municipality to put a resolution together, whether it's part of this one or another one, that specifically asks for one road only, because it is too complicated for all of them? Would that be considered, do you think? I don't know, because I'm not a part of those committees. That's more where I'm at.
I think that's a much bigger question that we're not going to resolve at this particular council meeting, because right now we're just talking bike lanes.
Yeah.
But that goes to our relationship with the district and the various advantages and challenges that entails, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Have I responded Ms. Way?
Sorry, I tweaked it a bit based off the conversation that has just occurred.
Sorry?
I tweaked the resolution again based
Okay.
off the conversation that has just occurred.
And you're going to share that tweaking with us? Okay. The children are sending regular communities in Port Severn Park. All right. Council, are you ready to vote? All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Bocek, launch ramp. You are the next on board to talk about the launch ramp at the Severn River at the Big Chute.
Yeah, thanks to you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief on this one because from the time that I proposed this to come to council, I've done a lot of background research and engaged with business owners in that area. So the want or the need from our residents that live on the Severn River, and for those that don't know, basically from Whites Falls Road where the Big Chute is, the north shore of that river all the way down to almost Severn Falls is Georgian Bay Township. It abuts up against Muskoka Lakes on one side and Severn Township on the other side. So we have a small population there that really doesn't get a lot of service from the township, much like the rest of our township, because they're remote and can't utilize most of the things we have. It was brought to my attention in the way of phone calls and emails, and then finally with a petition from residents there, that there was no access, no municipal access to the river in the township of Georgian Bay, much like Gloucester Pool has, 6 Mile Lake has, Gibson, Stewart Lake, Georgian Bay. Everybody else has municipal access except for our residents. The question that was posed to me is, how can we gain access to the river in the township of Georgian Bay? I've done the footwork, found out that we don't own any property, or at least I couldn't find any property the township owns on the Severn River. So the question from the residents was, well, can we use an existing launch ramp that's at a business and the township enter into an agreement with this business to allow this to happen? Well, unfortunately, we're not in the business of doing that. And we're certainly not in the business of taking money out of taxpayers' hands that have built a launch ramp and everything else. So there was some questions about the ownership of the launch ramp, and apparently a small sliver of this launch ramp has ownership by Parks Canada via the Big Chute. From my understanding, the township of Georgian Bay has no ownership in this launch ramp at all. So the reason to bring this to council was to get our operations director to see if there is any viable physical way to get a launch ramp into the Severn River on Georgian Bay property? And if there's not, then he's got to come back and tell council that. And the people on the river are going to have to continue to use launch ramps in Severn Township or Georgian Bay Township that are privately owned and pay the appropriate fees to those owners for parking and everything else. It's more on a commercial side of things. People that are building, you may get transport trucks of gravel, stone, sand, roof trusses, everything. You can't clog up a guy's launch ramp, a recreational launch ramp for these activities that sometimes take days. And that's what the inquiry is all about. So I'm looking for a fact finding from our operations department. They did a preliminary report about a year ago on this. But the residents are still asking, what are we doing about it? I guess what I'm looking for is a definitive answer. Yes, we can provide it, or no, we can't provide it. And that, I believe, would have to come from our operations department. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rienko.
Although I tend to agree with Councilor Bocek on this, I think we need to broaden our review. For example, if we did put out a public launch on township property, I think you would have a lot of people from Severn Township coming up to use it. And I have no problem with that. But I think there may be more opportunity to find something in Severn Township that maybe we could go in with them on some kind of cost sharing to build or maintain or whatever, that both of our townships could use. And there's a lot of property along the Severn River in the Severn Township, and we may find something there more amenable than our own site. So I think if you're going to do that, we should talk to Severn Township about, first of all, is there any public launch in the township of Severn? And if so, then we should be advertising it to our own township. If not, can we jointly do something and put in a public launch someplace along their shore? I think that would be a better option. Do you really care what township the launch is in? All you want is access to the Severn River, and it may be best on the Severn side. So I think the review should be expanded to include both sides of the river.
Councilor Bocek.
I believe that study has been done, and I spoke to private businesses in the area. There is a public launch ramp with access to the Severn River in Severn Township, and their response to local businesses are, if they want to launch for free, go to the public launch ramp. Whether it's Severn or Georgian Bay or Muskoka Lakes, it really doesn't matter. But I don't think. Yeah, exactly what Mr. Rienko said, that logistics, whether it's in our township or not, it's access to the river that matters. And my understanding is there is access in Severn Township. The want from our constituents, our residents, was, is there any ability for us to have a public launch ramp on the Georgian Bay side? And that's really what I'm fulfilling by bringing this resolution to council for, is to get an answer. Is there or is there not? So there is a way to the river. There's a way you can get on it if you want to, but not from our township.
And so the resolution reads, be it resolved that council directs staff to determine the ownership of all ramp access to Severn River at the Big Chute. And Ms. Way is going to modify that. I can just tell.
Yes, I'd like that's really not the wording that we're looking for here, because let's see how it's reading.
Be it resolved that council directs staff to review viable options for a municipally owned launch ramp to access the Severn River within the township of Georgian Bay, shoreside. I think we just leave it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Councilor Rienko, I believe I see your hand.
I think it should be above. It should mention above the Big Chute, because that's the area we're considering right now, is the area above the Big Chute. So I know the area you're talking about, Councilor Bocek, for public launching, and that's why I mentioned it. You know, it might come down just to put a sign up at the Big Chute saying public launch, 5 kilometers this way, type of thing, and just advertise the location of it for our members as to, here's a public launch 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers away. That may be the cheapest option, but anyway, I think that should be looked into.
Councillor Cooper.
I happen to agree with Councillor Wienko. I mean, this is, I understand that Councillor Bochek is trying to be responsive to the citizens in the area in the township of Georgian Bay, but the reality is that we've just heard that there is access to the river, a public launch through Severn. So it seems a bit of a red herring to me. Sorry.
And to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Sokash did a, let's call it a preliminary report on this, because he was looking at the existing ramp and its ownership already. I'm not sure this is, that asking him to confirm those details is that big an ask, but I'm imagining when all is said and done, the most practical resolution will be, well, there is a launch ramp nearby, just happens not to be in our township.
I like the red herring theory, to tell you the truth.
Do you want that in the resolution?
It's very tasty.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, this was to get information only. And I think we know the information. We just need to have a resolution that allows me to give my constituents an official response from the township. That's all.
All right. And Ms. Way, you got your hand up, finger?
I just amended access to the Severn River west of the Big Chute within the township of Georgian Bay.
Is that west or is that north?
No, that's east.
Northeast. Northeast.
Ms. Gunby, you have to cut this out?
I'm going to blame Ms. Gunby if west is wrong.
I said east and I'm like, no, west, because I do the never eat shredded wheat thing. So it was, when I'm looking at the map, it's to the west.
Northwest?
Just say upstream of the Big Chute.
Yeah, upstream. There you go.
Yeah.
Upstream of the Big Chute.
And
Awesome.
Upstream makes more sense.
I'm going to trust Councillor Wienko. He knows which way the water flows around there.
I'm a left or right kind of person, not a north or south.
Not an up or downstreamer?
No.
Yeah,
Actually, I think if you look at the map, it'd be south. It's
So
actually going
upstream of
south
the
at
Big
that point.
I agree with the resolution as it reads, because we're not asking for a lot there. Just to debunk the sign idea, I never, ever want to give people the opportunity to not use our local businesses for parking, for launching, for anything. And I certainly don't want to advertise in front of a business, hey, you can go down there for free and do it. So just the resolution as it sits, we're going to get a quick answer and I can go back to my residents and say, yes, it's going to happen in the future, or no, there's not a chance it's ever going to happen. That's all I need.
All right. So let's put the resolution up one more time just to make sure everybody remembers it, including the mayor, and then we will call for the vote. Be it resolved, the council directs staff to review viable options for a municipally owned launch ramp to access the Severn River upstream of the Big Chute within the township of Georgian Bay. All those in favor? I'm seeing more than enough hands, so that is carried. Thank you. Okay, and so our next item of new business, Georgian Bay Public Library funding will be for tomorrow because we're getting a delegation tomorrow. Then we have a bylaw with regards to appointing our new secretary treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. And I think that is one of those relatively straightforward things, and that is that Mercia Barron is applied and been given the position of secretary treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. And then we need a bylaw to make that appointment. You need the bylaw read out in full, or can we just vote on it, Ms. Way?
If you could just say adopts bylaw 2021-014, that would make me much happier.
Okay. Be it resolved, the council adopts bylaw 2021-014 to appoint Mercia Barron as the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. You actually had the words in front of me. I just had to look down. All those in favor? Marcia is now our new Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. Now, I have a question for you, Ms. Way. You had the closed session tomorrow.
Correct.
Can we not just do it today?
We can.
Is it just approval of the minutes, I believe, is it not?
It is. So if there is no debate, there's no reason to go into closed. If there's any discussion that needs to happen around them, then we should go into closed. But we can definitely do those today. I just wasn't sure on timing when trying to divide.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But I'm just looking at our agenda, and everything that we haven't done other than closed should wait until tomorrow because they're connected with the delegation. So I'm just thinking, why not get this done today, and then we don't have to think about it tomorrow.
Perfect.
All right, Council, did anyone want to discuss anything in regard to the minutes that we're going to approve? If anybody does, we'll go into closed. If nobody does, then we'll just read the resolutions in open and approve. Any discussion around the minutes of our closed sessions from the past? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So now I just have to find the resolutions.
39 and 40.
I love it when a clerk's on the ball. So helpful. The first resolution reads, moved by Councillor Bochek, second by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved, the Council adopts the February 8th, 2021 Planning Council closed minutes as circulated. All those in favor? And those minutes are adopted. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved, the Council adopts the February 9, 2021 Council closed minutes as circulated. All those in favor? And those are carried. Okay. And then going back to where I was, I'm trying to. I think that's it for today. So I have moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Bochek. Be it resolved, the Council does now recess at 2:19 p.m. on March 8th, 2021 to reconvene at 9 a.m. March 9th, 2021. In other words, tomorrow morning. All those in favor? And that is carried. And I think therefore we are now recessed. And tomorrow morning, we will have a couple staff awards. We will have Susan McGibbon delegate to us from the Georgian Bay Public Library about 9:15. We will have Brian McCrae delegate to us on Sunday gun hunting around 10. And we'll have Neil Smelly of Lakeland Networks delegate to us around 11. So I imagine